La belleza interior y la inteligencia emocional son conceptos intangibles.
Inner beauty and emotional intelligence are intangible concepts. Inner beauty and emotional intelligence are intangible concepts.
Disfruto de la compañía de personas con un enfoque realista de todo lo que hacen.
I enjoy the company of people with a down-to-earth approach to everything they do. I enjoy the company of people with a down-to-earth approach to everything they do.
Las terapias alternativas se aplican a numerosos tipos de dolencias físicas.
Alternative therapies are applied to numerous kinds of physical complaints. Alternative therapies are applied to numerous kinds of physical complaints.
Puedo ver una clara mejora en la forma en que Gregory maneja las situaciones difíciles.
I can see a definite improvement in the way Gregory handles difficult situations. I can see a definite improvement in the way Gregory handles difficult situations.
Algunas personas no están dispuestas a hacer compromisos, especialmente cuando se trata de salir de sus zonas de confort.
Some people are not willing to make compromises, especially when it involves stepping out of their comfort zones. Some people are not willing to make compromises, especially when it involves stepping out of their comfort zones.
La reciente aparición de los relojes inteligentes han captado la atención de varios clientes potenciales.
The newly emerging smartwatches have captured the attention of several potential customers. The newly emerging smartwatches have captured the attention of several potential customers.
Tengo que reconocer que me he quedado sin ideas.
I have to acknowledge that I have run out of ideas. I have to acknowledge that I have run out of ideas.
De hecho, quiero resaltar la importancia de las donaciones.
As a matter of fact, I want to highlight the importance of donations. As a matter of fact, I want to highlight the importance of donations.
Cuando se trata de cumplir con nuestros deberes, no siempre estamos entusiasmados por hacerlo.
When it comes to fulfilling our duties, we are not always enthusiastic about doing them. When it comes to fulfilling our duties, we are not always enthusiastic about doing them.
Las redes sociales dan una idea de la vida de otras personas.
Social media gives an insight into other people's lives. Social media gives an insight into other people's lives.
No quiero que influya en mi decisión.
I don't want him to influence me in my decision. I don't want him to influence me in my decision.
Este incidente es mucho más escandaloso de lo que nos dijeron.
This incident is far more outrageous than they told us. This incident is far more outrageous than they told us.
La procrastinación solo hace que tus problemas se acumulen.
Procrastination only makes your problems pile up. Procrastination only makes your problems pile up.
El pensamiento positivo puede indudablemente mejorar tu salud.
Positive thinking can, undoubtedly, improve your health. Positive thinking can, undoubtedly, improve your health.
Él también me pidió que me disculpara en su nombre.
He asked me to apologize on his behalf, too. He asked me to apologize on his behalf, too.
Recientemente, Olivia ha estado muy distraída por su caballo.
Olivia has been too distracted by her horse recently. Olivia has been too distracted by her horse recently.
El pan comprado en la tienda no se compara con las versiones caseras.
Store-bought bread is not comparable to homemade versions. Store-bought bread is not comparable to homemade versions.
Todas las palabras importantes en las frases están en negrita.
All the important words in the phrases are in bold. All the important words in the phrases are in bold.
Liam es un hombre decente y fiel que sacrificaría incluso su carrera por su familia.
Liam is a decent and faithful man who would sacrifice even his career for his family. Liam is a decent and faithful man who would sacrifice even his career for his family.
Esta generación se ha vuelto adicta a consumir comida chatarra.
This generation has become addicted to consuming junk foods. This generation has become addicted to consuming junk foods.
La mayoría de las palabras que dices reflejan tus pensamientos.
Most of the words you say reflect your thoughts. Most of the words you say reflect your thoughts.
A los pacientes en los hospitales estadounidenses les dan gelatina de fruta rica en colágeno para recuperarse más rápido.
Patients in American hospitals get collagen-rich fruit jelly to recover faster. Patients in American hospitals get collagen-rich fruit jelly to recover faster.
No es casualidad que la gente diga que cosechas lo que siembras.
It is not by chance that people say you reap what you sow. It is not by chance that people say you reap what you sow.
Nunca podría haber soñado con una corrector de pruebas más comprometida y meticulosa que Judith, cuya ayuda ha sido invaluable para mí en los últimos meses.
I could never have dreamed of a more committed and meticulous proofreader than Judith, whose help has been priceless for me in the last few months. I could never have dreamed of a more committed and meticulous proofreader than Judith, whose help has been priceless for me in the last few months.
Rebecca y Sam están disfrutando de sus merecidas y tan esperadas vacaciones en Nueva Zelanda.
Rebecca and Sam are enjoying their well-deserved and long-awaited vacation in New Zealand. Rebecca and Sam are enjoying their well-deserved and long-awaited vacation in New Zealand.
Solo quiero resumir todo de nuevo en pocas palabras.
I only want to summarize everything again in a nutshell. I only want to summarize everything again in a nutshell.
Las personas pueden expresar libremente sus sentimientos más profundos a través del arte.
People can freely express their deepest feelings through art. People can freely express their deepest feelings through art.
Irse de compras es una forma poco saludable de enfrentar las dificultades.
A shopping spree is an unhealthy way to cope with hardships. A shopping spree is an unhealthy way to cope with hardships.
¿Sabes por qué a Chicago siempre se le conoce como la ciudad de los vientos?
Do you know why Chicago is always referred to as the Windy City? Do you know why Chicago is always referred to as the Windy City?
Al principio, estaban escépticos sobre todo lo que escuchaban.
At the very beginning, they were skeptical about everything they heard. At the very beginning, they were skeptical about everything they heard.
Marjorie dedicó todo su tiempo a familiarizarse con la cocina mexicana.
Marjorie devoted all her time to familiarize herself with the Mexican cuisine. Marjorie devoted all her time to familiarize herself with the Mexican cuisine.
Los efectos del ayuno es un tema que se discute frecuentemente hoy en día.
The effects of fasting are a frequently discussed issue these days. The effects of fasting are a frequently discussed issue these days.
¿Puede mencionar algunos casos en donde la vida de las personas se haya visto afectada por condiciones climáticas extremas?
Can you mention some cases when people's lives have been affected by extreme weather conditions? Can you mention some cases when people's lives have been affected by extreme weather conditions?
El aprendizaje continuo estimula la mente y amplía el conocimiento.
Continuous learning stimulates the mind and broadens one's knowledge. Continuous learning stimulates the mind and broadens one's knowledge.
Lindsay se había ido incluso antes de que pudiéramos haber explicado algo.
Lindsay had left even before we could have explained anything. Lindsay had left even before we could have explained anything.
Waldorf es un método de enseñanza mediante el cual los estudiantes son libres de explorar y utilizar su creatividad e imaginación.
Waldorf is a teaching method whereby students are free to explore and use their creativity and imagination. Waldorf is a teaching method whereby students are free to explore and use their creativity and imagination.
Cuando mi hermana menor tuvo la oportunidad de su vida de estudiar en Juilliard en Nueva York, la aceptó de inmediato.
When my younger sister got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study at Juilliard in New York, she immediately accepted it. When my younger sister got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study at Juilliard in New York, she immediately accepted it.
Debimos haber aclarado las cosas antes, pero aún tenemos suficiente tiempo para resolver el problema.
We should have clarified things earlier, but we still have enough time to solve the problem. We should have clarified things earlier, but we still have enough time to solve the problem.
Cuando Sharon tenga su propio caballo, se le permitirá montarlo cuando quiera.
When Sharon gets her own horse, she will be allowed to ride it whenever she wants to. When Sharon gets her own horse, she will be allowed to ride it whenever she wants to.
No puedo imaginarme la bendición que debe ser para ella ser parte de una comunidad tan increíble.
I can't comprehend what a blessing it must be for her to be part of such an amazing community. I can't comprehend what a blessing it must be for her to be part of such an amazing community.
Si quieres ser eficiente, debes priorizar tus tareas.
If you want to be efficient, you need to prioritize your tasks. If you want to be efficient, you need to prioritize your tasks.
El yogurt mezclado con semillas y frutas secas le da tanto impulso de energía que no puede dejar de trabajar.
Yogurt mixed with dried fruits and seeds gives her such an energy boost that she can't stop working. Yogurt mixed with dried fruits and seeds gives her such an energy boost that she can't stop working.
Aproximadamente, hay 6 religiones principales en el mundo.
Roughly, there are 6 major world religions in the world. Roughly, there are 6 major world religions in the world.
Debemos encontrar una solución que podamos mantener a largo plazo.
We must find a solution that we can sustain in the long run. We must find a solution that we can sustain in the long run.
Solo cuando la situación empeore, las autoridades locales comenzarán a actuar.
Only when the situation gets worse will the local authorities begin to act. Only when the situation gets worse will the local authorities begin to act.
No necesitas conducir ahora si estás muy cansado, M.
You don't need to be driving now if you are too exhausted. You don't need to be driving now if you are too exhausted.
Los pasajeros estaban aterrorizados por la turbulencia, incluso después de que el avión había aterrizado.
The passengers were terrified because of the turbulence even after the plane had landed. The passengers were terrified because of the turbulence even after the plane had landed.
La pizza en los Estados Unidos comenzó a venderse por primera vez en Manhattan en 1905.
Pizza in the USA started to be sold for the first time in Manhattan in 1905. Pizza in the USA started to be sold for the first time in Manhattan in 1905.
En Internet puedes acceder a una cantidad prácticamente ilimitada de información.
You can access virtually limitless amounts of information on the Internet. You can access virtually limitless amounts of information on the Internet.
Sus argumentos son muy persuasivos, aunque no siempre estoy de acuerdo con ellos.
His arguments are very persuasive, although I don't always agree with them. His arguments are very persuasive, although I don't always agree with them.
Algunos miembros de la generación más joven no pueden distinguir entre la vida real y el mundo de la ficción en la televisión.
Some members of the younger generation cannot distinguish between real life and the world of fiction on TV. Some members of the younger generation cannot distinguish between real life and the world of fiction on TV.
Bajo ninguna circunstancia se les permite a los concursantes abandonar las instalaciones durante la competencia.
Under no circumstances are contestants permitted to leave the premises during the competition. Under no circumstances are contestants permitted to leave the premises during the competition.
Después de haber pagado sus deudas, comenzaron a ahorrar para una casa de verano.
After they had paid off their debts, they started to save for a summer house. After they had paid off their debts, they started to save for a summer house.
Puede que haya respondido mi correo electrónico, ya no me acuerdo.
He might have answered my email, I can't remember anymore. He might have answered my email, I can't remember anymore.
Hay una gran contradicción entre las declaraciones de los dos sospechosos.
There is a huge contradiction between the two suspects' statements. There is a huge contradiction between the two suspects' statements.
No pueden estar quitando la maleza del jardín ahora, los acabo de ver en la estación de tren.
They can't be weeding in the garden now. I have just seen them at the train station. They can't be weeding in the garden now. I have just seen them at the train station.
A pesar de la inundación, la gente estaba usando sus autos después del huracán.
Despite the flood, people were using their cars after the hurricane. Despite the flood, people were using their cars after the hurricane.
Se ha hecho una lista completa de los participantes egipcios.
A complete list of the Egyptian participants has been made. A complete list of the Egyptian participants has been made.
La feliz pareja se fue de luna de miel al día siguiente de su boda.
The happy couple left for their honeymoon the day after their wedding. The happy couple left for their honeymoon the day after their wedding.
El alcalde está convencido de que su decisión ha sido favorable para toda la ciudad.
The mayor is convinced that his decision has been favorable for the whole town. The mayor is convinced that his decision has been favorable for the whole town.
Hank ha acumulado suficiente experiencia con los años para lanzar pronto su propio emprendimiento.
Hank has gathered enough experience through the years to launch his own startup company soon. Hank has gathered enough experience through the years to launch his own startup company soon.
Los líderes desaprueban firmemente la idea de construir otra estación de esquí en el área.
The leaders strongly disapprove of the idea of building another ski resort in the area. The leaders strongly disapprove of the idea of building another ski resort in the area.
No tenían necesidad de haber modificado la fecha, ya que el 1 de septiembre habría sido perfecto para todos.
They needn't have modified the date since the 1st of September would have been perfect for everybody. They needn't have modified the date since the 1st of September would have been perfect for everybody.
Siendo recién casados, están muy enamorados el uno del otro.
Being newlyweds, they are in love with each other very much. Being newlyweds, they are in love with each other very much.
Aparte de ayer, no recuerdo una situación en la que te haya visto con un vestido de noche.
Apart from yesterday, I can't remember an instance when I saw you in an evening dress. Apart from yesterday, I can't remember an instance when I saw you in an evening dress.
Los aviones de Sandra y Antonio despegaron casi simultáneamente, pero en diferentes direcciones.
Sandra's and Antonio's planes took off almost simultaneously, but to different directions. Sandra's and Antonio's planes took off almost simultaneously, but to different directions.
Si puedes administrar tu tiempo sabiamente, también podrás ayudarnos en este asunto.
If you can manage your own time wisely, you will also be able to help us in this matter. If you can manage your own time wisely, you will also be able to help us in this matter.
Ni una sola persona se acordó de la clave de la caja fuerte.
Not a single person remembered the code of the safe. Not a single person remembered the code of the safe.
Estos nadadores aficionados tienen todas las habilidades que los calificarían para ser profesionales.
These amateur swimmers have all the skills that would qualify them to be professional ones. These amateur swimmers have all the skills that would qualify them to be professional ones.
A esta hora de la semana pasada Andrew estaba empacando su maleta para sus vacaciones en Taiwán.
This time last week Andrew was packing his suitcase for his holiday in Taiwan. This time last week Andrew was packing his suitcase for his holiday in Taiwan.
Mientras conduce al trabajo, ella siempre escucha sus canciones favoritas para animarse.
While driving to work, she always listens to her favorite songs to cheer up. While driving to work, she always listens to her favorite songs to cheer up.
Lo que me gustaría que hicieras es un trabajo lento pero provechoso.
What I would like you to do is a time-consuming but rewarding job. What I would like you to do is a time-consuming but rewarding job.
La hora en que soy más productivo en el trabajo es en la mañana, m.
The time when I am the most productive at work is morning. The time when I am the most productive at work is morning.
No preguntamos sobre su vida privada porque habría sido de muy mala educación.
We didn't inquire about his private life because it would have been too impolite. We didn't inquire about his private life because it would have been too impolite.
¿Podrías poner un recordatorio para no olvidar comprar todo para la fiesta de despedida?
Would you please set a reminder not to forget to purchase everything for the farewell party? Would you please set a reminder not to forget to purchase everything for the farewell party?
Mis amigos han visitado todos los países de Sudamérica, a excepción de Chile.
My friends have visited all South American countries, except for Chile. My friends have visited all South American countries, except for Chile.
Las noticias sobre la hambruna en Indonesia fueron abrumadoras, así que tuvimos que actuar de inmediato.
The news about the famine in Indonesia were overwhelming, so we had to act immediately. The news about the famine in Indonesia were overwhelming, so we had to act immediately.
Si tienes más tiempo, bien podríamos buscar una cafetería.
If you have some more time, we might as well look for a coffee shop. If you have some more time, we might as well look for a coffee shop.
Las temperaturas a lo largo del Ecuador en África son mayormente por encima de los 35 grados centígrados en el verano, mientras que apenas alcanzan los 15 grados en el Polo Norte.
Temperatures along the equator in Africa are mostly above 35 Celsius degrees in the summer, whereas they barely reach 15 degrees in the North Pole. Temperatures along the equator in Africa are mostly above 35 Celsius degrees in the summer, whereas they barely reach 15 degrees in the North Pole.
Los webinars te ofrecen una excelente oportunidad para mantener tus conocimientos al día sin salir de tu hogar.
Webinars give you an excellent opportunity to keep your knowledge up to date without leaving your home. Webinars give you an excellent opportunity to keep your knowledge up to date without leaving your home.
Si no fuera por las fuertes lluvias que cayeron la semana pasada, hubiéramos podido comenzar a plantar los robles.
But for the heavy rain that fell last week, we would have been able to start planting the oak trees. But for the heavy rain that fell last week, we would have been able to start planting the oak trees.
La mayoría de las personas consideran que usar celulares en un auto es una distracción.
The majority of people find the use of cell phones in a car very distracting. The majority of people find the use of cell phones in a car very distracting.
Te llamaré en cuanto salga del edificio.
I'll call you the minute I step out of the building. I'll call you the minute I step out of the building.
Era la segunda vez que habíamos viajado al extranjero.
It was the second time we had traveled overseas. It was the second time we had traveled overseas.
Rose quería saber si ya habíamos anunciado nuestro compromiso.
Rose wanted to know if we had announced our engagement yet. Rose wanted to know if we had announced our engagement yet.
Nos preguntaron por qué no queríamos practicar el esquí acuático.
They asked us why we didn't want to try water skiing. They asked us why we didn't want to try water skiing.
Las relaciones humanas son de vital importancia para el bienestar emocional de un individuo.
Human relationships are of critical importance for an individual's emotional well-being. Human relationships are of critical importance for an individual's emotional well-being.
El entrenador de baloncesto de Martín normalmente es permisivo, excepto cuando sabe que algo no es beneficioso para el progreso del niño.
Martin's basketball coach is normally permissive, except when he knows something is not beneficial for the boy's progress. Martin's basketball coach is normally permissive, except when he knows something is not beneficial for the boy's progress.
Ninguno de ellos es menor de edad, así que ya pueden votar.
None of them are underage, so they can already vote. None of them are underage, so they can already vote.
En Liechtenstein tendrá la oportunidad de colaborar con arquitectos con los que nunca ha trabajado antes.
In Liechtenstein, you will have the chance to cooperate with architects you have never worked with before. In Liechtenstein, you will have the chance to cooperate with architects you have never worked with before.
Me sorprendió saber cuántos extranjeros estudian en esta universidad.
I was surprised to find out how many foreigners study at this university. I was surprised to find out how many foreigners study at this university.
Amanda me dijo con mucha anticipación cuando vendría, para que yo pudiera hacer un plan.
Amanda told me well in advance when she would be coming so that I could prepare a plan. Amanda told me well in advance when she would be coming so that I could prepare a plan.
El médico tranquilizó al paciente de que no tenía nada de qué preocuparse.
The doctor reassured the patient that she has nothing to worry about. The doctor reassured the patient that she has nothing to worry about.
El pelo rubio y los ojos azules son características comunes en los países escandinavos.
Blonde hair and blue eyes are common features in Scandinavian countries. blonde hair and blue eyes are common features in Scandinavian countries.
La variedad de colores que usa en sus pinturas es espectacular.
The variety of colors that he uses in his paintings is spectacular. The variety of colors that he uses in his paintings is spectacular.
En cuanto al lugar se refiere, deberíamos optar por el lugar más cercano que podamos encontrar.
As far as the venue is concerned, we should opt for the closest place we can find. As far as the venue is concerned, we should opt for the closest place we can find.
Prometo que estaré listo para cuando regreses, M.
I promise I'll be ready by the time you get back. I promise I'll be ready by the time you get back.
Siempre que se renueve mi visa, podría trabajar para esa empresa siempre y cuando me necesiten.
Provided my visa is renewed, I could work for that company as long as they need me. Provided my visa is renewed, I could work for that company as long as they need me.
Es poco probable que el resultado influya considerablemente en nuestra decisión final.
It is unlikely that the result will significantly influence us in our final decision. It is unlikely that the result will significantly influence us in our final decision.
Aaron estaba aliviado de hacer lo mejor que pudo por su equipo.
Aaron was relieved that he did the best he could for his team. Aaron was relieved that he did the best he could for his team.
Sin ninguna evidencia, no pueden arrestarlo.
Without any evidence, they cannot arrest him. Without any evidence, they cannot arrest him.
Trabajar como freelance me ha permitido experimentar una libertad personal que no conocía antes.
Working as a freelancer has allowed me to experience a personal freedom I didn't know before. Working as a freelancer has allowed me to experience a personal freedom I didn't know before.
Estoy tratando de averiguar qué otra cosa podría hacer para ayudarla.
I am trying to find out what else I could do to help her. I am trying to find out what else I could do to help her.
Mientras trato de entender por qué se comporta de esta manera, apoyo a Johnson en sus estudios.
While trying to understand why he behaves this way, I support Johnson in his studies. While trying to understand why he behaves this way, I support Johnson in his studies.
El enorme anillo de diamantes que llevaba puesto era muy llamativo.
The huge diamond ring that she was wearing was very eye-catching. The huge diamond ring that she was wearing was very eye-catching.
Es una niña nacida en Madrid, pero ha pasado la mayor parte de su vida en Medio Oriente.
She is a Madrid-born girl, but she has spent most of her life in the Middle East. She is a Madrid-born girl, but she has spent most of her life in the Middle East.
La escuela solo puede dar información a aquellos que participan en el programa de intercambio de estudiantes.
The school can only give information to those taking part in the student exchange program. The school can only give information to those taking part in the student exchange program.
Nunca habían tenido una bienvenida tan cálida durante su estadía en Hawái.
They have never encountered such a warm welcome throughout their stay in Hawaii. They have never encountered such a warm welcome throughout their stay in Hawaii.
¿Podría por favor revisar la parte restante del capítulo 6?
Could you please revise the remaining part of Chapter 6? Could you please revise the remaining part of Chapter 6?
Debe permanecer durante al menos 10 minutos diarios al sol para obtener una cantidad suficiente de vitamina D.
You need to lie for at least 10 minutes a day in the sun to get a sufficient amount of vitamin D. You need to lie for at least 10 minutes a day in the sun to get a sufficient amount of vitamin D.
¿En qué aspectos es diferente el modo de pensar europeo del asiático?
In what areas is the European way of thinking different from the Asian one? In what areas is the European way of thinking different from the Asian one?
¿Cuánto tiempo ha pasado desde la última vez que usaste tu bicicleta?
How long is it since you last used your bike? How long is it since you last used your bike?
Sin su perseverancia no hubiera podido llegar a los Juegos Olímpicos.
Without his perseverance, he wouldn't have been able to make it to the Olympics. Without his perseverance, he wouldn't have been able to make it to the Olympics.
Ver una comedia puede ser al menos tan desestresante como hacer senderismo en las montañas por un día.
Watching a comedy can be at least as stress-relieving as hiking in the mountains for a day. Watching a comedy can be at least as stress-relieving as hiking in the mountains for a day.
Solo estaba fingiendo saber todos los detalles de la última conferencia.
I was only pretending to know all the details of the last conference. I was only pretending to know all the details of the last conference.
Contrario a la creencia general, los valores humanos como la compasión y la gratitud todavía se aprecian en muchas culturas modernas.
Contrary to general belief, human values like compassion and gratitude are still appreciated in many modern cultures. Contrary to general belief, human values like compassion and gratitude are still appreciated in many modern cultures.
No tengo la intención de ponerte un peso innecesariamente, así puedes entregar tu ensayo después del fin de semana.
I don't intend to place a burden on you unnecessarily, so you can hand in your essay after the weekend. I don't intend to place a burden on you unnecessarily, so you can hand in your essay after the weekend.
Sé que las intenciones del niño son puras, pero aún así no quiero que mi hija salga con él.
I know the boy's intentions are pure, but I still don't want my daughter to go out with him. I know the boy's intentions are pure, but I still don't want my daughter to go out with him.
La audiencia finalmente entendió lo que el investigador estaba tratando de decir.
The audience eventually understood what the researcher was trying to say. The audience eventually understood what the researcher was trying to say.
Lamentamos mucho las molestias que ha causado nuestro hotel.
We are terribly sorry about the inconvenience our hotel has caused. We are terribly sorry about the inconvenience our hotel has caused.
Deberíamos considerar la posibilidad de examinar ambos lados del problema que surgió ayer.
We should consider looking into both sides of the issue that came up yesterday. We should consider looking into both sides of the issue that came up yesterday.
La información que proporciona la prensa sobre cualquier tema a menudo es distorsionada para impresionar a la audiencia.
Information provided by the press on any subject is often distorted to impress the audience. Information provided by the press on any subject is often distorted to impress the audience.
¿El levantamiento de pesas hace parte de tu rutina diaria?
Is weightlifting incorporated into your daily routine? Is weightlifting incorporated into your daily routine?
El dueño del nuevo restaurante griego tiene un gusto excepcionalmente exquisito.
The owner of the new Greek restaurant has an exceptionally exquisite taste. The owner of the new Greek restaurant has an exceptionally exquisite taste.
Es de extrema importancia priorizar la situación de los huérfanos.
It is of extreme importance to prioritize the situation of the orphans. It is of extreme importance to prioritize the situation of the orphans.
En combinación con la práctica regular, puedes lograr resultados notables con esta nueva técnica de natación.
In combination with regular practice, you can achieve remarkable results with this new swimming technique. In combination with regular practice, you can achieve remarkable results with this new swimming technique.
Si bebieras más agua, podrías reducir la posibilidad de sentirte fatigado todo el tiempo. M.
If you drank more water, you could reduce the chance of being fatigued all the time. If you drank more water, you could reduce the chance of being fatigued all the time.
Fue la única explicación creíble a la que pudieron llegar.
It was the only plausible explanation that they were able to come up with. It was the only plausible explanation that they were able to come up with.
No hay garantía de que este método prevenga cualquier perjuicio adicional en su condición psicológica.
There is no guarantee that this method will prevent any further damage in her psychological condition. There is no guarantee that this method will prevent any further damage in her psychological condition.
Mientras vivía en Toronto, trabajó como trabajador social entre muchas otras cosas.
Among other things, he has worked as a social worker while he was living in Toronto. Among other things, he has worked as a social worker while he was living in Toronto.
Existe una correlación entre el alto consumo de proteínas y el crecimiento muscular.
There is a correlation between high protein intake and muscle growth. There is a correlation between high protein intake and muscle growth.
Después de graduarse de Yale, Brenda comenzó su carrera en una prestigiosa empresa.
After graduating from Yale, Brenda started her career at a prestigious firm. After graduating from Yale, Brenda started her career at a prestigious firm.
Siendo consciente del hecho de que era mi última oportunidad, puse todo mi esfuerzo en encontrar las fotocopias que necesitaba.
Being aware of the fact that it was my last chance, I put all my effort into finding the copies that I needed. Being aware of the fact that it was my last chance, I put all my effort into finding the copies that I needed.
Al dejar el auto en el centro, utilicé transporte público para llegar al aeropuerto.
Leaving the car downtown, I used public transportation to get to the airport. Leaving the car downtown, I used public transportation to get to the airport.
La sociedad estadounidense se caracteriza por la diversidad y la aceptación mutua.
The American society is characterized by diversity and mutual acceptance. The American society is characterized by diversity and mutual acceptance.
Habiendo completado las tareas del hogar, Diane se sentó a tomar un café en el balcón.
Having completed the housework, Diane sat down for a coffee on the balcony. Having completed the housework, Diane sat down for a coffee on the balcony.
No esperaba volver a verlo, pero lo hice.
I wasn't expecting to see him again, but I did. I wasn't expecting to see him again, but I did.
No me arrepentí de llamar a Mia en medio de la noche para decirle que la amo.
I didn't regret calling Mia in the middle of the night to tell her that I love her. I didn't regret calling Mia in the middle of the night to tell her that I love her.
Homicidio, soborno y secuestro son crímenes graves contra un individuo.
Homicide, bribery and kidnapping are serious crimes against an individual. Homicide, bribery and kidnapping are serious crimes against an individual.
Las empresas exitosas constantemente promocionan sus productos y servicios.
Successful companies constantly promote their products and services. Successful companies constantly promote their products and services.
A los deportistas famosos se les paga millones de dólares por usar ropa con diferentes logos.
Famous sports people are paid millions of dollars for wearing clothes with different companies' logos. Famous sports people are paid millions of dollars for wearing clothes with different companies' logos.
El paisaje en la Toscana fue fabuloso, incluyendo su flora única y hermosos edificios.
The scenery in Tuscany was fabulous, including its unique flora and special buildings. The scenery in Tuscany was fabulous, including its unique flora and special buildings.
Me hizo sentir preocupado ver que el wedding planner no había organizado nada 2 meses antes del gran día, M.
It made me feel concerned to see that the wedding planner hadn't organized anything 2 months before the big day. It made me feel concerned to see that the wedding planner hadn't organized anything 2 months before the big day.
Es libre de abandonar el curso en cualquier momento que lo necesite.
You are free to leave the course at any time you need to. You are free to leave the course at any time you need to.
El hombre no tiene intención de publicar ningún libro en el futuro cercano.
The man has no intention of publishing any books in the near future. The man has no intention of publishing any books in the near future.
Una vez hayamos encontrado la mejor solución posible, la compartiremos contigo.
Once we have found the best possible solution, we will share it with you. Once we have found the best possible solution, we will share it with you.
Por el momento, es solo un trabajo temporal que comienzo el miércoles.
For the time being, it is only a temporary job that I start on Wednesday. For the time being, it is only a temporary job that I start on Wednesday.
Ellos aconsejaron que deberíamos aceptar la oferta.
They advised that we should accept the offer. They advised that we should accept the offer.
Los hábitos alimenticios en Japón son muy diferentes de lo que estamos acostumbrados en Hungría.
The eating habits in Japan are very different from what we are used to in Hungary. The eating habits in Japan are very different from what we are used to in Hungary.
Ser fluido en un idioma extranjero significa que no piensas en tu lengua materna mientras formas oraciones.
Being fluent in a foreign language means that you do not think in your mother tongue while forming your sentences. Being fluent in a foreign language means that you do not think in your mother tongue while forming your sentences.
Si hubiera marcado el 911, el cuerpo de bomberos habría estado en la escena en 5 minutos.
If you had dialed 911, the fire brigade would have been on the scene in 5 minutes. If you had dialed 911, the fire brigade would have been on the scene in 5 minutes.
Ojalá hubiéramos conocido a David mucho antes.
I wish we had known David much earlier. I wish we had known David much earlier.
La intención de la empresa de aumentar las horas extras fue recibida con una fuerte oposición.
The company's attempt to increase overtime was met with fierce opposition. The company's attempt to increase overtime was met with fierce opposition.
Daniel espera cumplir todo en su lista de deseos antes de los 60 años para comenzar a escribir uno nuevo.
Daniel hopes to accomplish everything on his bucket list by the age of 60 in order to start writing a new one. Daniel hopes to accomplish everything on his bucket list by the age of 60 in order to start writing a new one.
Lo que más me interesa es cómo podemos eliminar las barreras culturales en la comunicación.
What I'm most interested in is how we can eliminate cultural barriers in communication. What I'm most interested in is how we can eliminate cultural barriers in communication.
Obtener un doctorado requiere relativamente más esfuerzo que hacer un título universitario de 3 años.
Getting your PhD degree requires relatively more effort than doing a 3-year bachelor's degree. Getting your PhD degree requires relatively more effort than doing a 3-year bachelor's degree.
Mi sobrino era tan perseverante en su deseo de convertirse en médico que solo jugaba con kits médicos y ambulancias de juguete.
My nephew was so persistent in his desire to become a doctor that he only played with medical kits and toy ambulance cars. My nephew was so persistent in his desire to become a doctor that he only played with medical kits and toy ambulance cars.
Dependiendo de la cultura a la que pertenezcas, diferentes gestos pueden significar diferentes cosas.
Depending on what culture you are from, different gestures can mean different things. Depending on what culture you are from, different gestures can mean different things.
Cada pensamiento del escritor fue tan inspirador para mí que decidí comprar todos sus libros. M.
Every single thought of the writer was so uplifting for me that I decided to buy all her books. Every single thought of the writer was so uplifting for me that I decided to buy all her books.
Hace mucho tiempo, los vecinos se reunían por las tardes y jugaban cartas.
A long time ago, neighbors would gather together in the evenings and play cards. A long time ago, neighbors would gather together in the evenings and play cards.
En mis años universitarios, mis compañeros de cuarto solían estudiar de noche cuando nadie los molestaba.
In my university years, my roommates used to study at night when nobody was disturbing them. In my university years, my roommates used to study at night when nobody was disturbing them.
Si el presidente me hubiera pedido mi opinión, habría aprobado su propuesta.
If the chairman had asked my opinion, I would have approved of his proposal. If the chairman had asked my opinion, I would have approved of his proposal.
Venecia a menudo es asociada con sus góndolas y calles llenas de agua.
Venice is often associated with its gondolas and water-filled streets. Venice is often associated with its gondolas and water-filled streets.
El equipo de natación sincronizada siempre ha atribuido su éxito a su respetado entrenador, M.
The synchronized swimming team has always attributed its success to its respected coach. The synchronized swimming team has always attributed its success to its respected coach.
Algunos de los ingredientes utilizados en la receta de panacate son crema espesa, extracto de vainilla y gelatina.
Some of the ingredients used in the panna cotta recipe are heavy cream, vanilla extract, and gelatin. Some of the ingredients used in the panna cotta recipe are heavy cream, vanilla extract, and gelatin.
Tu primera preocupación ahora debería ser darle a tu hijo tanto amor y atención como puedas.
Your first concern now should be giving your child as much love and attention as you can. Your first concern now should be giving your child as much love and attention as you can.
Toma tiempo ver las consecuencias de tus buenas acciones, pero vale la pena esperar.
It takes time to see the consequences of your good actions, but they're worth waiting for. It takes time to see the consequences of your good actions, but they're worth waiting for.
En estos tiempos difíciles, tu presencia es una ayuda tremenda para los niños.
Your presence is a tremendous help for the kids in these hard times. Your presence is a tremendous help for the kids in these hard times.
Esta regulación está dirigida principalmente a defender a personas con casos similares.
This regulation is primarily aimed at defending people in similar cases. This regulation is primarily aimed at defending people in similar cases.
El sitio web ha sido creado exclusivamente para estudiantes con nivel avanzado de inglés.
The website has been exclusively created for students of advanced level English. The website has been exclusively created for students of advanced level English.
Siempre me impresiona la oficina impecable y a la vez alegre en la que trabaja el pediatra de mis hijos, M.
I am always impressed by the immaculate yet cheerful office my children's pediatrician works in. I am always impressed by the immaculate yet cheerful office my children's pediatrician works in.
Usar un calendario apropiado puede ahorrar una gran cantidad de tiempo al día.
Using an appropriate calendar can be a huge daily time saver. Using an appropriate calendar can be a huge daily time saver.
Si me sigues, puedo mostrarte exactamente los mismos libros que la reina Victoria solía leer.
If you follow me, I can show you the exact same books Queen Victoria used to read. If you follow me, I can show you the exact same books Queen Victoria used to read.
Una conversación efectiva requiere un equilibrio entre hablar y escuchar.
An effective conversation requires an equal balance between talking and listening. An effective conversation requires an equal balance between talking and listening.
¿Está satisfecho con la forma en que su aprendiz se desempeña en su puesto?
Are you satisfied with the way your trainee performs in his position? Are you satisfied with the way your trainee performs in his position?
Tomamos todas nuestras decisiones basados en información que ya conocemos.
We make all our decisions based on information we already know. We make all our decisions based on information we already know.
Nunca antes había escuchado que hablar más de un idioma aumentara tus habilidades de resolución de problemas.
I have never heard before that speaking more than one language increases your problem-solving abilities. I have never heard before that speaking more than one language increases your problem-solving abilities.
Es difícil no ofender a nadie a tu alrededor cuando estás de mal humor.
It's hard for you not to offend anybody around you when you are in a bad mood. It's hard for you not to offend anybody around you when you are in a bad mood.
El hongo reishi se prescribe regularmente en China para las personas que sufren de estrés y ansiedad.
Reishi mushroom is regularly prescribed in China for people suffering from stress and anxiety. Reishi mushroom is regularly prescribed in China for people suffering from stress and anxiety.
Este tipo de seguro mensual de auto cubre el daño causado por tu vehículo.
This type of monthly car insurance covers the damage caused by your car. This type of monthly car insurance covers the damage caused by your car.
Los adultos tienen que dar un buen ejemplo en todas las áreas de la vida a la generación más joven.
Adults have to set a good example for the younger generation in all areas of life. Adults have to set a good example for the younger generation in all areas of life.
Ni el buceo ni el tiro con arco le fascinaron lo suficiente como para intentarlo más de una vez durante su excursión en Malasia.
Neither scuba diving nor archery fascinated him enough to try it more than once during his excursion in Malaysia. Neither scuba diving nor archery fascinated him enough to try it more than once during his excursion in Malaysia.
En nuestra capital no se permite que los edificios se pongan en mal estado.
No buildings in our capital are allowed to become shabby. No buildings in our capital are allowed to become shabby.
Aprendí la palabra, concebir, de Pierce Brosnan en una entrevista con Jay Leno.
I learned the word conceive from Pierce Brosnan in an interview with Jay Leno. I learned the word conceive from Pierce Brosnan in an interview with Jay Leno.
Esta campaña publicitaria está dirigida a personas que hacen ejercicio de forma activa.
This advertising campaign is targeted at individuals who exercise actively. This advertising campaign is targeted at individuals who exercise actively.
En términos de economía, Estados Unidos y China son líderes mundiales.
In terms of economy, the United States and China are world leaders. In terms of economy, the United States and China are world leaders.
Los miembros del equipo misionero lo hicieron asombrosamente bien durante su viaje de 3 días a Nigeria.
The members of the missionary team did astonishingly well during their 3-day Nigerian trip. The members of the missionary team did astonishingly well during their 3-day Nigerian trip.
Ninguno de los desafíos difíciles podía intimidar a los voluntarios que continuaron con su trabajo sin miedo.
None of the tough challenges could intimidate the volunteers who carried on with their work fearlessly. None of the tough challenges could intimidate the volunteers who carried on with their work fearlessly.
El señor Warden es uno de esos clientes insistentes que no se van hasta que obtienen lo que quieren.
Mr. Warden is one of those insistent clients who don't leave until they get what they want. Mr. Warden is one of those insistent clients who don't leave until they get what they want.
Todos los asistentes intentaron hablar con Lena sobre renunciar a su trabajo, pero ella se negó a escuchar a sus colegas.
All the assistants tried to talk Lena out of quitting her job, but she refused to listen to her colleagues. All the assistants tried to talk Lena out of quitting her job, but she refused to listen to her colleagues.
Es relativamente fácil cumplir con las expectativas de alguien cuando se obtiene suficiente motivación para completar la tarea.
It's relatively easy to live up to someone's expectations when getting enough motivation to complete the task. It's relatively easy to live up to someone's expectations when getting enough motivation to complete the task.
Todas las instituciones educativas estatales deben recortar gastos innecesarios.
All state-owned educational institutions are to cut back on unnecessary expenditures. All state-owned educational institutions are to cut back on unnecessary expenditures.
Tenemos que soportar más horas extra hasta que este proyecto esté terminado y entregado.
We have to put up with more overtime until this project is finished and submitted. We have to put up with more overtime until this project is finished and submitted.
La gran mayoría de estos planes se habrán implementado para fin de año.
The vast majority of these plans will have been implemented by the end of the year. The vast majority of these plans will have been implemented by the end of the year.
Para pintar una imagen precisa de lo que está sucediendo en este momento, necesito entrar en algunos detalles.
To paint an accurate picture of what is happening right now, I need to go into some details. To paint an accurate picture of what is happening right now, I need to go into some details.
Han estado haciendo progresos considerables en la investigación de la hepatitis C.
They have been making considerable progress in the research of hepatitis C. They have been making considerable progress in the research of hepatitis C.
En un caso tan difícil, solo puedo recordarle que use la información que ya conoce sobre la organización.
In such a difficult case, I can only remind you to use the information you already know about the organization. In such a difficult case, I can only remind you to use the information you already know about the organization.
Dejar ir a más de la mitad de los empleados no puede de ninguna manera remediar los problemas que enfrenta nuestra empresa.
Letting go of over half of the employees cannot in any respect remedy the problems our company faces. Letting go of over half of the employees cannot in any respect remedy the problems our company faces.
Háganos saber de antemano si necesita ayuda con la traducción de los documentos.
Let us know in advance if you need assistance with the translation of the documents. Let us know in advance if you need assistance with the translation of the documents.
Nunca debemos ser reacios a dar el primer paso hacia nuestros objetivos.
We should never be reluctant to take the first step towards our goals. We should never be reluctant to take the first step towards our goals.
Una vez que estés en Ciudad del Cabo, es imprescindible visitar el Cabo de Buena Esperanza.
Once you are in Cape Town, visiting the Cape of Good Hope is a must. Once you are in Cape Town, visiting the Cape of Good Hope is a must.
Normalmente me siento perdido cuando tengo que comprar un regalo para mi prometida.
I'm usually at a loss when I have to buy a gift for my fiancée. I'm usually at a loss when I have to buy a gift for my fiancée.
Finalmente voy a hacer un balance entre el tiempo que paso en la naturaleza y trabajando dentro de la oficina.
I am about to finally make a balance between my time spent in nature and working inside the office. I am about to finally make a balance between my time spent in nature and working inside the office.
¿No sería mucho mejor bajar de la caminadora y comenzar de nuevo a un ritmo más lento?
Wouldn't it be much better to get off the treadmill and start it all over at a slower pace? Wouldn't it be much better to get off the treadmill and start it all over at a slower pace?
Si estás en el vecindario, ven a tomar un café.
If you happen to be in the neighborhood, drop in for a coffee. If you happen to be in the neighborhood, drop in for a coffee.
Se ha estimado que los precios de los autos disminuirán hasta en un 15%.
It has been estimated that car prices will decrease by up to 15%. It has been estimated that car prices will decrease by up to 15%.
¿Quién crees que asumirá sus responsabilidades mientras Brian esté en Florida?
Who do you suppose will take over his responsibilities while Brian is in Florida? Who do you suppose will take over his responsibilities while Brian is in Florida?
Hasta donde recuerdo, no hay mucho que ver en ese lugar.
As far as I remember, there is not much to see at that place. As far as I remember, there is not much to see at that place.
Charlie prometió ayudarnos con la condición de que le devolvamos el favor.
Charlie promised to help us on condition that we return the favor. Charlie promised to help us on condition that we return the favor.
Siempre vamos al mismo lugar para cenar. Vayamos a otro lugar para variar.
We always go to the same place to have dinner. Let's go somewhere else for a change. We always go to the same place to have dinner. Let's go somewhere else for a change.
Entró en la habitación como si no hubiera sabido sobre la fiesta sorpresa.
She walked into the room as if she hadn't known about the surprise party. She walked into the room as if she hadn't known about the surprise party.
Este extraño fenómeno se puede ver al mismo tiempo cada primavera.
This weird phenomenon can be seen at the same time every spring. This weird phenomenon can be seen at the same time every spring.
Con la cantidad adecuada de entrenamiento, fuerza de voluntad y resistencia, Bill pudo escalar el monte Everest.
With adequate amounts of training, willpower, and stamina, Bill was able to climb Mount Everest. With adequate amounts of training, willpower, and stamina, Bill was able to climb Mount Everest.
¿Puedes distinguir entre los acentos de Nueva Zelanda y Australia?
Can you make a distinction between the New Zealand and Australian accents? Can you make a distinction between the New Zealand and Australian accents?
Ya han gastado enormes sumas de dinero en la construcción de molinos de viento productores de energía.
They have already spent huge sums of money on building energy-producing windmills. They have already spent huge sums of money on building energy-producing windmills.
De vez en cuando Joyce se toma unos días libres para irse con sus amigos a recargarse física y espiritualmente.
Joyce occasionally takes a few days off to go away with her friends to recharge both physically and spiritually. Joyce occasionally takes a few days off to go away with her friends to recharge both physically and spiritually.
El propósito principal de este seminario es brindar a los participantes información detallada sobre el proceso de admisión de las universidades.
The primary purpose of this seminar is to give the partakers detailed information about the admission process of colleges. The primary purpose of this seminar is to give the partakers detailed information about the admission process of colleges.
Las demandas del empleador eran tan irrazonables que no pudimos cumplir con sus expectativas.
The employer's demands were so unreasonable that we couldn't keep up with his expectations. The employer's demands were so unreasonable that we couldn't keep up with his expectations.
Cuando estuvo castigado, a Dylan no se le permitía viajar o comunicarse con el mundo exterior.
Dylan was not allowed to travel or communicate with the outside world when he was grounded. Dylan was not allowed to travel or communicate with the outside world when he was grounded.
La opinión está dividida en cuanto a si el centro comercial debería construirse en los suburbios.
Opinion is divided as to whether the shopping mall should be built in the suburbs. Opinion is divided as to whether the shopping mall should be built in the suburbs.
Los adolescentes dedican no menos del 20% de su tiempo a enviar mensajes de texto.
Adolescents spend no less than 20% of their time on texting. Adolescents spend no less than 20% of their time on texting.
El anciano da el poco dinero que tiene a sus queridos nietos.
The elderly man gives what little money he has to his beloved grandchildren. The elderly man gives what little money he has to his beloved grandchildren.
No se han visto desde hace varios años.
They haven't seen each other for quite a few years. They haven't seen each other for quite a few years.
El novio sintió un pequeño hormigueo en sus manos y pies cuando miró a su hermosa novia.
The bridegroom felt a little tingling in his hands and feet when he glanced at his gorgeous bride. The bridegroom felt a little tingling in his hands and feet when he glanced at his gorgeous bride.
Si ha trabajado durante al menos 40 años, tiene derecho a recibir una pensión después de jubilarse.
If you have worked for at least 40 years, you are entitled to receive a pension after you retire. If you have worked for at least 40 years, you are entitled to receive a pension after you retire.
Debido a su aislamiento de la sociedad, los conciudadanos a menudo malinterpretan a los Amish.
Due to their isolation from society, Amish people are often misunderstood by their fellow citizens. Due to their isolation from society, Amish people are often misunderstood by their fellow citizens.
Él es un poco insensible cuando se trata de escuchar a otras personas.
He is slightly insensitive when it comes to listening to other people. He is slightly insensitive when it comes to listening to other people.
El perdón es fundamental para una conciencia limpia.
Forgiveness is critical to a clean conscience. Forgiveness is critical to a clean conscience.
La privatización, hasta cierto punto, está relacionada con el tema de hoy.
Is privatization, to some extent, related to today's topic? Is privatization, to some extent, related to today's topic?
¿Ya has tenido la oportunidad de participar en entrenamientos culturales internacionales?
Have you had a chance to participate in international cultural trainings yet? Have you had a chance to participate in international cultural trainings yet?
Por favor, tenga en cuenta que no podemos responder a todas sus preguntas de inmediato.
Please bear in mind that we cannot answer all your questions immediately. Please bear in mind that we cannot answer all your questions immediately.
Su respuesta fue rápida pero satisfactoria.
His response was quick but satisfying. His response was quick but satisfying.
Todas las drogas encontradas en el maletero del auto han sido confiscadas por los funcionarios de la aduana.
All the drugs found in the trunk of the car have been confiscated by the customs officers. All the drugs found in the trunk of the car have been confiscated by the customs officers.
No quería molestarlos con las malas noticias, así que se las oculté.
I didn't want to trouble them with the bad news, so I kept it back from them. I didn't want to trouble them with the bad news, so I kept it back from them.
Ahora parece obvio quién fue el responsable de los acontecimientos.
It seems obvious now who was responsible for the events. It seems obvious now who was responsible for the events.
Después de que se establecieron los objetivos, pasaron a discutir las cuestiones menores.
After the objectives had been set, they went on to discuss the minor points. After the objectives had been set, they went on to discuss the minor points.
Al chef se le ocurre un menú alternativo siempre que se entera que invitados especiales vienen a visitar el lugar.
The chef comes up with an alternative menu whenever he finds out that special guests are coming to visit the place. The chef comes up with an alternative menu whenever he finds out that special guests are coming to visit the place.
Los comentarios recibidos de los clientes han sido positivos hasta ahora.
Feedback received from the clients has all been positive until now. Feedback received from the clients has all been positive until now.
Todos los medicamentos mencionados anteriormente están actualmente disponibles.
All medicines listed above are currently available. All medicines listed above are currently available.
En cuanto a su contenido, la nueva guía de viajes de María superó nuestras expectativas.
In terms of its content, Maria's newest travel guide exceeded our hopes. In terms of its content, Maria's newest travel guide exceeded our hopes.
Intentaron convencerme para que diera información interna, pero no dije nada.
They tried to coax me into giving out some internal information, but my lips were sealed. They tried to coax me into giving out some internal information, but my lips were sealed.
Habrá un importante avance tecnológico en la producción de autos en las próximas décadas.
There will be a significant technological breakthrough in car production in the next decades. There will be a significant technological breakthrough in car production in the next decades.
Los investigadores pronto descubrieron que las mujeres interrogadas estaban divorciadas y que en todos los casos, su separación se originó por maridos infieles.
Investigators soon found out that the women questioned were divorced, and in each case their separation was initiated by cheating husbands. Investigators soon found out that the women questioned were divorced, and in each case their separation was initiated by cheating husbands.
¿Qué precauciones se deben tomar para evitar que el fuego se propague una vez que ha comenzado?
What precautions should be taken to avoid the fire from spreading once it has started? What precautions should be taken to avoid the fire from spreading once it has started?
Cuando tienes FOMO, miedo a perderte de algo, experimentas un sentimiento de ansiedad de que te quedas por fuera de un evento social divertido.
When you have FOMO, fear of missing out, you experience a feeling of anxiety that you are left out of a fun social event. When you have FOMO, fear of missing out, you experience a feeling of anxiety that you are left out of a fun social event.
Es difícil llegar a conclusiones en nuestra conversación si contradices cada declaración que hago.
It is hard to achieve any conclusions in our conversation if you contradict every single statement I make. It is hard to achieve any conclusions in our conversation if you contradict every single statement I make.
El hombre estaba tan enojado que tiró todo y salió furioso de la habitación.
The man was so upset that he threw away everything and stormed out of the room. The man was so upset that he threw away everything and stormed out of the room.
Donde quiera que vivas, las ventajas del teletrabajo son múltiples.
Wherever you live, the advantages of teleworking are manifold. Wherever you live, the advantages of teleworking are manifold.
Han encontrado que la valoración continua de los niños es una gran herramienta para evaluar el desempeño.
They have found children's continuous assessment to be a great tool in evaluating performance. They have found children's continuous assessment to be a great tool in evaluating performance.
Estoy seguro de que la ayuda económica enviada a las zonas afectadas por la guerra ha salvado muchas vidas. M.
I am confident that the financial aid sent to the war-stricken areas has saved plenty of lives. I am confident that the financial aid sent to the war-stricken areas has saved plenty of lives.
En cuanto a la clonación, su trasfondo legal y ético sigue siendo polémico.
As for cloning, its legal and ethical background is still controversial. As for cloning, its legal and ethical background is still controversial.
Llegaron a la conclusión de que cuando los niños y las niñas son separados en las escuelas, las niñas tienen más seguridad en su desempeño.
They came to the conclusion that when boys and girls are separated in schools, girls are more self-assured in their performance. They came to the conclusion that when boys and girls are separated in schools, girls are more self-assured in their performance.
Contratar aprendices es una forma rentable de quitarle algunas cargas a los empleados de una empresa.
Hiring apprentices is a cost-effective way of taking some burdens off the employees of a company. Hiring apprentices is a cost-effective way of taking some burdens off the employees of a company.
Las estadísticas de ayer muestran que el 63,2% de los ciudadanos votaron en las elecciones.
Yesterday's statistics show that 63.2% of citizens turned out to vote at the elections. Yesterday's statistics show that 63.2% of citizens turned out to vote at the elections.
¿Tiene alguna objeción a reescribir todo el contrato?
Do you have any objections to rewriting the whole contract? Do you have any objections to rewriting the whole contract?
El escándalo en torno al presidente no lo ayudó a reunir más votos.
The scandal around the president didn't help him collect more votes. The scandal around the president didn't help him collect more votes.
Un titular atractivo tiene la capacidad de atraer la atención de los lectores.
An alluring headline has the ability to attract the attention of readers. An alluring headline has the ability to attract the attention of readers.
Inconscientemente, siempre pensamos primero en los métodos convencionales.
Unconsciously, it is always the conventional methods that we first think of. Unconsciously, it is always the conventional methods that we first think of.
Solo podemos reducir las emisiones vehiculares si, de manera similar al gobierno chino, limitamos la cantidad de autos en las carreteras.
We can only reduce vehicle emissions if, similarly to the Chinese government, we limit the number of cars on the roads. We can only reduce vehicle emissions if, similarly to the Chinese government, we limit the number of cars on the roads.
Durante el juicio, el juez tiene derecho a tomar la decisión final sobre la sanción.
During the trial, the judge has the right to make the final decision about the penalty. During the trial, the judge has the right to make the final decision about the penalty.
quien encuentre primero la evidencia, recibirá la recompensa.
Whoever finds the proof first will get the reward. Whoever finds the proof first will get the reward.
El virus se propagó mucho más rápido de lo que habían esperado anteriormente.
The virus spread much faster than they had earlier expected. The virus spread much faster than they had earlier expected.
Ahora me arrepiento de no haberte dicho la verdad antes, pero en ese entonces parecía una decisión razonable mantenerlo en secreto.
I'm regretting now that I didn't tell you the truth earlier, but it seemed to be a reasonable decision to keep it a secret at the time. I'm regretting now that I didn't tell you the truth earlier, but it seemed to be a reasonable decision to keep it a secret at the time.
Para algunas personas, hacerse un piercing es una forma de expresar su singularidad, mientras que, para otras, es una forma de rebelión.
For some people, getting a piercing is a form of expressing their uniqueness, while for others, it is a way of rebellion. For some people, getting a piercing is a form of expressing their uniqueness, while for others, it is a way of rebellion.
El Dr. Gondar fue reconocido como un naturópata.
Dr. Gondar became recognized as a naturopath. Dr. Gondar became recognized as a naturopath.
No pongas en peligro tu matrimonio por una aventura amorosa insensata.
Don't jeopardize your marriage by a risky love affair. Don't jeopardize your marriage by a risky love affair.
Los bancos en gran parte se especializan en préstamos y seguros, pero también se ocupan del cambio de divisas y el leasing.
Banks largely specialize in loans and insurance, but also deal with currency exchange and leasing. Banks largely specialize in loans and insurance, but also deal with currency exchange and leasing.
Ella demostró ser una maestra tremendamente talentosa a pesar de su falta de experiencia profesional previa.
She proved to be a tremendously talented teacher despite her lack of previous professional experience. She proved to be a tremendously talented teacher despite her lack of previous professional experience.
¿Cuándo particularmente vale la pena tomar un trabajo en el extranjero?
When is it particularly worth taking a job abroad? When is it particularly worth taking a job abroad?
Varios restaurantes están ampliando progresivamente sus servicios para estar a la altura de la competencia.
Several restaurants are progressively expanding their services to keep up with the competition. Several restaurants are progressively expanding their services to keep up with the competition.
Los costos de mantenimiento de los autos de lujo pueden ascender a varios miles de dólares al año.
The maintenance costs of luxurious cars can amount to several thousands of dollars per year. The maintenance costs of luxurious cars can amount to several thousands of dollars per year.
Si te apuras todo el tiempo, transmites el mensaje que tienes más carga sobre tus hombros de la que puedes soportar.
If you rush all the time, it conveys the message that you have more burden on your shoulders than you can bear. If you rush all the time, it conveys the message that you have more burden on your shoulders than you can bear.
Considerando las circunstancias, los organizadores hicieron un excelente trabajo en el campeonato mundial.
Considering the circumstances, the organizers did an excellent job at the World Championship. Considering the circumstances, the organizers did an excellent job at the World Championship.
Espero poder ampliar mi nivel de conocimiento en japonés en unos pocos meses.
I hope to be able to expand my level of knowledge in Japanese within a few months. I hope to be able to expand my level of knowledge in Japanese within a few months.
Este crecimiento no es sostenible a largo plazo sin tener en cuenta algunos factores ecológicos.
This growth isn't sustainable on a long-term basis without taking some ecological factors into consideration. This growth isn't sustainable on a long-term basis without taking some ecological factors into consideration.
Los recursos naturales de la Tierra se están agotando rápidamente, por lo que los científicos están constantemente inventando nuevas formas de producir energía renovable.
The natural resources of the Earth are running low fast, so scientists are constantly inventing new ways to produce renewable energy. The natural resources of the Earth are running low fast, so scientists are constantly inventing new ways to produce renewable energy.
El prototipo del auto sin conductor fue modificado con base en los comentarios de los conductores de prueba.
The prototype of the self-driving car was modified on the basis of feedback from test drivers. The prototype of the self-driving car was modified on the basis of feedback from test drivers.
¿Puedes nombrar algún problema de salud relacionado con la computadora?
Can you name any computer-related health problems? Can you name any computer-related health problems?
La noticia de que la esposa del presidente espera un bebé se propagó rápidamente.
The news of the president's wife expecting a baby spread like wildfire. The news of the president's wife expecting a baby spread like wildfire.
Algunas de las universidades más prestigiosas del mundo ofrecen cursos gratuitos en línea para estudiantes de habla inglesa.
Some of the world's most reputable universities offer free online courses to English-speaking students. Some of the world's most reputable universities offer free online courses to English-speaking students.
La deforestación es un problema muy serio en estos días porque reduce la cantidad de oxígeno en la atmósfera.
Deforestation is a very serious problem these days because it reduces the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. Deforestation is a very serious problem these days because it reduces the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere.
La desintoxicación es una excelente manera de limpiar tus órganos de sustancias nocivas.
Detoxification is a great way to clean your organs of harmful substances. Detoxification is a great way to clean your organs of harmful substances.
El CrossFit mejora el bienestar físico y mental.
CrossFit enhances both physical and mental well-being. CrossFit enhances both physical and mental well-being.
En cuanto al tema de las personas sin hogar, nuestro objetivo principal es reintegrar a estas personas en la sociedad.
Turning to the question of homelessness, our main goal is to reintegrate these individuals into society. Turning to the question of homelessness, our main goal is to reintegrate these individuals into society.
No puedes violar las reglas solo porque tu tío es el vicepresidente.
You can't violate the rules just because your uncle is the vice president. You can't violate the rules just because your uncle is the vice president.
Los peces dorados se deben alimentar una vez al día, no en horas irregulares.
Goldfish need to be fed once a day, not at irregular times. Goldfish need to be fed once a day, not at irregular times.
El tráfico se detuvo durante más de 3 horas esta tarde debido a los manifestantes.
Traffic was held up for over 3 hours this afternoon because of the protesters. Traffic was held up for over 3 hours this afternoon because of the protesters.
Siendo un testigo del robo, él es responsable de denunciarlo a las autoridades.
Being an eyewitness of the theft, he is responsible for reporting it to the authorities. Being an eyewitness of the theft, he is responsible for reporting it to the authorities.
El arte del bonsái originalmente proviene de Japón, pero hoy también se cultiva en muchos países occidentales.
The art of bonsai originally comes from Japan, but today it is cultivated in many Western countries, too. The art of bonsai originally comes from Japan, but today it is cultivated in many Western countries, too.
Representando a su grupo aeróbico, el niño subió al escenario con orgullo para aceptar el premio.
Representing his aerobic group, the little boy proudly stepped onto the stage to accept the prize. Representing his aerobic group, the little boy proudly stepped onto the stage to accept the prize.
A pesar de que corre el maratón todos los años, el handball es, sin lugar a dudas, su deporte favorito.
Despite him running the marathon every year, handball is, by all means, his favorite kind of sport. Despite him running the marathon every year, handball is, by all means, his favorite kind of sport.
Hay cientos de maneras creativas de incorporar superalimentos en tu dieta, como la espirulina.
There are hundreds of creative ways to integrate superfoods like spirulina into your diet. There are hundreds of creative ways to integrate superfoods like spirulina into your diet.
Millones de personas migran a países de Europa Occidental con la esperanza de una vida mejor.
Millions of people migrate to Western European countries in hope of a better life. Millions of people migrate to Western European countries in hope of a better life.
Se espera que Catherine, duquesa de Cambridge, dé su discurso sobre educación superior el próximo viernes.
Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge is expected to give her speech on tertiary education next Friday. Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge is expected to give her speech on tertiary education next Friday.
Definitivamente tenemos la intención de votar en el referéndum.
We definitely intend to vote in the referendum. We definitely intend to vote in the referendum.
Para ayudar a su amigo, Patrick decidió participar en una breve encuesta.
To help his friend, Patrick had resolved to take part in a short survey. To help his friend, Patrick had resolved to take part in a short survey.
El comité no estaba seguro de si les quedaba suficiente tiempo para discutir otro tema.
The committee wasn't sure whether they had enough time left to discuss another issue. The committee wasn't sure whether they had enough time left to discuss another issue.
La bacteria se propagará rápidamente a menos que la infección sea tratada adecuadamente.
The bacteria will spread quickly unless the infection gets treated properly. The bacteria will spread quickly unless the infection gets treated properly.
Los compradores no podían decidir si debían tomar la oferta favorable.
The buyers couldn't decide if they should take the favorable offer. The buyers couldn't decide if they should take the favorable offer.
Significa mucho para nuestro departamento que estés totalmente comprometido con este trabajo, M.
It means a lot to our department that you are fully committed to this job. It means a lot to our department that you are fully committed to this job.
Es ridículo lo rápido que este abogado puede citar párrafos del Código Civil, M.
It is ridiculous how fast this lawyer can quote paragraphs from the Civil Code. It is ridiculous how fast this lawyer can quote paragraphs from the Civil Code.
Se necesita mucha determinación para pasar de la planificación a la ejecución.
It takes a lot of determination to get from planning to realization. It takes a lot of determination to get from planning to realization.
Regularmente le pido consejos a mis amigos.
I ask my friends for advice on a regular basis. I ask my friends for advice on a regular basis.
Retrospectivamente, no podría haber habido una mejor manera de familiarizarlos con nuestros últimos documentales.
Retrospectively, there couldn't have been a better way to get them acquainted with our latest documentaries. Retrospectively, there couldn't have been a better way to get them acquainted with our latest documentaries.
¿Qué se entiende exactamente por infracción de derechos de autor?
What is exactly meant by copyright infringement? What is exactly meant by copyright infringement?
Podríamos crear grupos posteriores dentro de estas tres categorías para hacer que toda la imagen sea transparente.
We could create subsequent groups within these three categories to make the whole picture transparent. We could create subsequent groups within these three categories to make the whole picture transparent.
Se debe proporcionar un panorama general para que todos puedan entender el tema claramente.
A comprehensive picture needs to be provided so that everybody can understand the topic clearly. A comprehensive picture needs to be provided so that everybody can understand the topic clearly.
Ella siempre tenía un paquete de pañuelos en su bolso en caso de que se sintiera abrumada por la emoción.
She always had a packet of tissues in her handbag in case she would be overcome by emotion. She always had a packet of tissues in her handbag in case she would be overcome by emotion.
Incontables estudios científicos han revelado que el aceite de orégano puede ser útil para prevenir enfermedades virales y bacterianas.
Countless scientific studies have revealed that oregano oil can be useful to prevent viral and bacterial diseases. Countless scientific studies have revealed that oregano oil can be useful to prevent viral and bacterial diseases.
Los avances tecnológicos han alterado radicalmente nuestras relaciones sociales y métodos de comunicación.
Technological advances have radically altered our social relationships and communication methods. Technological advances have radically altered our social relationships and communication methods.
Está previsto que el director de recursos humanos se jubile este año.
The Human Resources Director is due to retire this year. The Human Resources Director is due to retire this year.
Los salarios en Europa Central son relativamente bajos, especialmente en comparación con los países de Europa Occidental.
Salaries in Central Europe are relatively low, especially compared to Western European countries. Salaries in Central Europe are relatively low, especially compared to Western European countries.
Parece indiscutible que este proceso es lo suficientemente seguro.
It seems indisputable that this process is secure enough. It seems indisputable that this process is secure enough.
En realidad, hacemos esto de una manera diferente.
In reality, we do this in a different way. In reality, we do this in a different way.
Subraye los puntos principales en el texto mencionado anteriormente.
Underline the main points in the previously mentioned text. Underline the main points in the previously mentioned text.
Como dije antes, no tiene sentido preocuparse por decisiones del pasado.
Like I said before, there is no point in worrying about past decisions. Like I said before, there is no point in worrying about past decisions.
Mark es tan sobreprotector con su hija que ya ni siquiera deja que los niños se acerquen a ella.
Mark is so overprotective of his daughter that he doesn't even let boys near her anymore. Mark is so overprotective of his daughter that he doesn't even let boys near her anymore.
Encuestas recientes muestran que de forma lenta pero segura, YouTube está reemplazando a Facebook como la plataforma más utilizada entre los miembros de la generación Z.
Recent surveys show that slowly but surely, YouTube is replacing Facebook as the most used platform among Generation Z members. Recent surveys show that slowly but surely, YouTube is replacing Facebook as the most used platform among Generation Z members.
Después mi viaje a la India, decidí conocer más sobre esta rica cultura.
Following my trip to India, I decided to get to know more about this rich culture. Following my trip to India, I decided to get to know more about this rich culture.
La última vez que leí libros sobre astronomía tenía 20 años, desde entonces, no he aprendido nada nuevo en este tema.
I last read books on astronomy in my 20s. Since then, I haven't learned anything new in this subject. I last read books on astronomy in my 20s. Since then, I haven't learned anything new in this subject.
Una Green Card es un documento indispensable para los inmigrantes si desean vivir y trabajar legalmente en los Estados Unidos de América.
A green card is an indispensable document for immigrants if they want to legally live and work in the United States of America. A green card is an indispensable document for immigrants if they want to legally live and work in the United States of America.
Eres una persona muy afortunada si por lo menos hay una persona en tu vida que te ama incondicionalmente.
You are a very lucky person if there's at least one person in your life who loves you unconditionally. You are a very lucky person if there's at least one person in your life who loves you unconditionally.
Junto con otras especies, los gorilas de montaña también están al borde de la extinción.
Together with other species, mountain gorillas are also on the verge of extinction. Together with other species, mountain gorillas are also on the verge of extinction.
Todos los estudiantes universitarios que además de estudiar, trabajan, están exentos de impuestos.
All university students who work besides studying are exempt from tax. All university students who work besides studying are exempt from tax.
La experiencia de Edward en este campo es demasiado limitada, pero estaría dispuesto a darle una oportunidad.
Edward's experience in this field is too narrow, but I would be willing to give him a chance. Edward's experience in this field is too narrow, but I would be willing to give him a chance.
El tiempo pasa muy lentamente cuando no tienes nada que hacer.
Time passes very slowly when you have nothing to do. Time passes very slowly when you have nothing to do.
La mayoría de las veces, las mujeres tienden a ser más cariñosas que los hombres.
Most of the time, women tend to be more affectionate than men. Most of the time, women tend to be more affectionate than men.
Ante todo, deberíamos preguntarle cuánto tiempo le gustaría estar en licencia de maternidad.
First and foremost, we should ask how long she would like to be on maternity leave. First and foremost, we should ask how long she would like to be on maternity leave.
¿Has oído los últimos rumores sobre Jen y Michael adoptando un niño?
Have you heard the latest rumors about Jen and Michael adopting a boy? Have you heard the latest rumors about Jen and Michael adopting a boy?
Había sentido un vacío en su corazón hasta que encontró a la indicada.
He had felt an emptiness in his heart until he found the right one. He had felt an emptiness in his heart until he found the right one.
Tarde o temprano, se dará cuenta de que este no es un trabajo de ensueño.
Sooner or later, she will realize that this is not a dream job. Sooner or later, she will realize that this is not a dream job.
El adelgazamiento de la capa de ozono demuestra que la negligencia humana tiene un impacto nocivo en nuestro planeta.
The thinning of the ozone layer proves that human negligence has a harmful impact on our planet. The thinning of the ozone layer proves that human negligence has a harmful impact on our planet.
Los perfeccionistas exigen lo mejor de los demás y de ellos mismos también.
Perfectionists demand the best from others and themselves as well. Perfectionists demand the best from others and themselves as well.
Cuando una tienda virtual se queda sin un producto, generalmente notifica a sus clientes cuando volverá a estar en stock.
When a web store runs out of a product, it usually notifies its customers when the item will be in stock again. When a web store runs out of a product, it usually notifies its customers when the item will be in stock again.
Con la ayuda del Internet de banda ancha, puedes acceder a una gran cantidad de información.
With the help of broadband internet, you can access a great deal of information. With the help of broadband internet, you can access a great deal of information.
El gobierno invierte dinero en exploración espacial hoy más que nunca.
The government invests more money in space exploration today than ever before. The government invests more money in space exploration today than ever before.
Todos los océanos están hasta cierto punto contaminados con materiales peligrosos.
All the oceans are contaminated with hazardous materials to a certain extent. All the oceans are contaminated with hazardous materials to a certain extent.
El reciclaje de residuos domésticos es una solución ecológica porque ahorra energía.
The recycling of domestic waste is an eco-friendly solution because it saves energy. The recycling of domestic waste is an eco-friendly solution because it saves energy.
El clima afecta significativamente a la agricultura y, por lo tanto, a toda la economía de un país.
Weather significantly affects the agriculture and, thus, the whole economy of a country. Weather significantly affects the agriculture and, thus, the whole economy of a country.
Incluso si una mujer soltera no es supersticiosa, seguramente estará feliz de atrapar el ramo de la novia en una boda.
Even if a single girl is not superstitious, she is surely happy to catch the bride's bouquet at a wedding. Even if a single girl is not superstitious, she is surely happy to catch the bride's bouquet at a wedding.
En el norte de Europa, un pequeño pino plantado en el jardín de los recién casados simboliza fertilidad y buena suerte.
In Northern Europe, a small pine tree planted in the newlyweds' garden symbolizes fertility and good luck. In Northern Europe, a small pine tree planted in the newlyweds' garden symbolizes fertility and good luck.
Algunos creen que la falta de lectura puede resultar en una falta de inteligencia.
Some believe that the lack of reading can result in a lack of intelligence. Some believe that the lack of reading can result in a lack of intelligence.
Ya no es necesario mostrar tu pasaporte en las fronteras dentro de los países de la Unión Europea.
It's no longer necessary to show your passport at the border within EU countries. It's no longer necessary to show your passport at the border within EU countries.
Pensé que era una pérdida de tiempo explicar cómo funcionan las plantas eléctricas, pero demostré que estaba equivocado.
I thought it was a waste of time to explain how nuclear power plants work, but I proved to be wrong. I thought it was a waste of time to explain how nuclear power plants work, but I proved to be wrong.
Me temo que en este caso no hay más alternativa que bajar los precios.
I'm afraid there is no alternative in this case but to lower prices. I'm afraid there is no alternative in this case but to lower prices.
Diseñaron el edificio de tal manera que los visitantes pueden ingresar desde dos direcciones diferentes.
They designed the building in such a way that visitors can enter from two different directions. They designed the building in such a way that visitors can enter from two different directions.
Si yo fuera tú, organizaría una campaña para salvar todos los hábitats de la selva tropical.
If I were you, I would organize a campaign to save all rainforest habitats. If I were you, I would organize a campaign to save all rainforest habitats.
Carlos no debió haber comido ese calamar, ahora tiene sarpullido en todo el cuerpo.
Carlos shouldn't have eaten that squid, now there are rashes all over his body. Carlos shouldn't have eaten that squid, now there are rashes all over his body.
Todas las decoraciones de cumpleaños se hicieron un día antes para no dejar todo ese trabajo para última hora.
All birthday decorations were made one day earlier so as not to leave all that work for the last minute. All birthday decorations were made one day earlier so as not to leave all that work for the last minute.
Los materiales promocionales se entregan diariamente a millones de clientes potenciales en todo el mundo.
Promotional materials are delivered daily to millions of potential customers worldwide. Promotional materials are delivered daily to millions of potential customers worldwide.
Es un gran honor para mí ser elegido para este papel, M.
It's a great honor for me to be chosen for this role. It's a great honor for me to be chosen for this role.
Necesitan tener mucha precaución en las montañas rocosas incluso si tienen una amplia experiencia en senderismo.
They need to be really cautious in the Rocky Mountains even if they have ample experience in hiking. They need to be really cautious in the Rocky Mountains even if they have ample experience in hiking.
Aunque su vocabulario es menos variado que el de sus compañeros de clase, sus habilidades para hablar son excepcionales.
While her vocabulary is less diverse than her classmates, her speaking skills are outstanding. While her vocabulary is less diverse than her classmates, her speaking skills are outstanding.
El tenista negó haber consumido alguna vez drogas para mejorar el rendimiento, M.
The tennis player denied that he had ever used performance-enhancing drugs. The tennis player denied that he had ever used performance-enhancing drugs.
Los graduados estaban preguntando si estábamos contratando analistas de negocios.
The graduates were inquiring if we were hiring any business analysts. The graduates were inquiring if we were hiring any business analysts.
A pesar de que Bernay tiene buenos contactos, aún tiene que hacer la entrevista de trabajo.
In spite of the fact that Barney has good connections, he still has to do the job interview. In spite of the fact that Barney has good connections, he still has to do the job interview.
La intensidad de la lluvia hizo que fuera imposible conducir en la zona.
The intensity of the rain made driving in the area impossible. The intensity of the rain made driving in the area impossible.
Las ferias de empleo se llevan a cabo en todo el país durante todo el año.
Job fairs are held across the country throughout the year. Job fairs are held across the country throughout the year.
Los proyectos son más fáciles de administrar cuando los divides en categorías más pequeñas.
Projects are easier to manage when you divide them into smaller categories. Projects are easier to manage when you divide them into smaller categories.
La forma más sencilla de transferir dinero es a través de sistemas de pago en línea.
The simplest way to transfer money is via online payment systems. The simplest way to transfer money is via online payment systems.
Tener una mascota ayuda a las personas mayores a lidiar con la soledad.
Having a pet helps senior citizens deal with loneliness. Having a pet helps senior citizens deal with loneliness.
Algunas personas creen que nada se siente mejor que hacer obras de caridad en hospitales, iglesias o campamentos infantiles.
Some people believe that nothing feels better than doing charitable work in hospitals, churches, or children camps. Some people believe that nothing feels better than doing charitable work in hospitals, churches, or children camps.
La contaminación del aire puede dar lugar a todo tipo de enfermedades respiratorias y cardiovasculares.
Air pollution can lead to all kinds of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases. Air pollution can lead to all kinds of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases.
No tendríamos que preocuparnos por los suministros de agua de la tierra si no desperdiciáramos tanto este recurso diariamente.
We wouldn't need to worry about the Earth's water supplies if we didn't waste so much of this resource daily. We wouldn't need to worry about the Earth's water supplies if we didn't waste so much of this resource daily.
Uno de los mejores mecanismos de defensa contra el deterioro de la salud mental es aprender un idioma extranjero.
One of the best coping mechanisms for declining mental health is learning a foreign language. One of the best coping mechanisms for declining mental health is learning a foreign language.